These are my 20 pro tips to help you be the best fighter in Fortnite. If you want to be any good at Fortnite, you need to be able to fight. And it's not all about triple edits and flashy mechanics. Some of the absolute best fighters in the world use the most simple mechanics. I'll be showing you 20 pro tips that are going to help you win more fights. Tip number 1, let's start with baits. Fortnite players are so predictable. When I drop down on a box, I'll pull out my pickaxe and then immediately switch back to my shotgun. So many times, players will just open up an edit as soon as they see you drop down, expecting you to hit the wall. And that's why showing them your pickaxe and then switching straight to your shotgun will get you an easy shot. Tip number 2. Another great way to bait opponents is to instantly reset edits. This can be done both defensively and offensively. Let's say there's a player boxed up. You take their wall, then instead of opening an edit for a shot, you open an edit and then immediately reset the wall. And 9 times out of 10, the opponent will shoot at you and break your wall. All you need to do is hold the wall to claim it back, or you can time it and shoot them right after the wall breaks. This is going to give you a big chunk of damage. Tip number 3. This tip I'm about to share with you works way too often. When I'm in a fight, I'll leave a wall open on purpose, like you can see here, and the player will always try to drop on that wall. And because I'm baiting the player with this, I place the wall before they can, and then I quickly box them. This turns it into an easy and quick kill. Tip number 4. This is what I like to call the cone slide. If you don't already know what this is going to be an absolute game changer. So if you didn't know, you can actually put cones under walls. If there's an opponent on ground level without a cone in their box, look right below the wall and place a cone. This move right here is going to take a lot of practice. You got to sit in creative and practice this until you get it down every single time. And most of the time when you do this, the opponent will freak out, and then you can easily take the wall from him. And of course, since you already have a cone in their box, you control the fight. Tip number 5. Just like I mentioned in the last one where you can place cones under walls, you can also place cones over walls. Cones have the furthest reach of any build type. When you're standing in a box, open up your cone. Then put your crosshair right on top of the wall and build a cone. Of course, this is much easier when you have a cone already placed in your box, so you have that little bit of elevation. And there is so much that you can use this for. Tip number 6. One of the best uses for the cone reach is called the calc cone. And shout out to Young Calc for this. When you're in a build fight, either you or the other players will place walls in front of you. Then you can place 3 cones over the enemy's walls. So you're going to want to start by using the last tip. Put your crosshair right over the wall directly in front of you. And then move to the left or right while keeping your crosshair over the walls. If done properly, you'll have placed 3 cones. 1 in front, 1 diagonal, and 1 to the right or the left. This is going to stop the enemy entirely from building up and will give you automatic high ground. And then all you have to do is edit through the cones for a shot or wait for them to make a move. Tip number 7. You have to stop being so predictable. Most players will do the exact same thing. Box up, make a peanut butter or window edit, and go for a shot. And everyone is expecting that. While this might not always be the best edit to make, it's important to switch it up from time to time. Try doing a bottom corner edit or a top row. Being unpredictable is just as important as your aim, especially when you're fighting the same player over and over again. Tip number 8. The next tip is another way to be unpredictable. Never double pickaxe. When actively fighting another player, the easiest way to pre-fire somebody is when they double pickaxe your wall. We've all played this game for long enough to know the timing on a double pickaxe. So when you're attacking the wall, just don't do it. There are so many different ways to switch it up. You can pickaxe and then pull out your burst. You could pickaxe, hold out your shotgun, back to pickaxe. You could fake pickaxe swing, then you swing, and then hold your shotgun out to shoot and pre-fire them. You guys understand the point. Now, of course, there are times where you should ignore this rule. Say the enemy is reviving in a box or trying to pop heals, then go ahead and double pickaxe, but be careful of getting pre-fired. Tip number 9. Now let's reverse that last tip. If a player is double pickaxing your wall, then of course you should be pre-firing them. Pre-fires are super important to slow down pressure or turn the tide in a fight. The more you play, the more you'll get used to players' tendencies. Whether it's a pickaxe or weapon spray, you should always try to pre-fire. Tip number 10. Now this one might sound crazy, but let players jump in your box when they run out of ammo. Let's say an opponent is trying to jump in your box while spraying an SMG. Pay attention to how long they've been spraying for, and once they're about to run out of ammo, let them in your box. And then when they're in your box, they're gonna have to pull out their shotgun because they won't have anything else to pressure with. Tip number 11. The next tip is where you position yourself in box fights. You always want to be to the left of the opponent with them on your right. This is because Fortnite has a third-person POV with a right shoulder preference. This means when you're peeking to the right, you're going to expose less of your body than when you're peeking to the left. So when you're setting up for a fight or working for a better position, you're always going to want to wind up here for better angles. Tip number 12. I say this a ton, but not everyone does it still. Always fight with a cone in your box. If not, your opponent will quickly realize and put a cone or ramp in your box. By this point in Fortnite, this should be an automatic thing. And you might say, well, I don't like to fight with a cone in my box. I hate to break it to you, but you gotta get used to it. Keep practicing with cones in your boxes. Tip number 13. The next tip is to build muscle memory for pre-placing builds. There's gonna be certain edit and build combinations that have an immediate follow-up to them. For example, you have double edits on your opponent, and then of course, you're gonna edit the floor and edit the cone to shoot. So after this, what do you think the follow-up moves should be? Well, there's two options. Number one, if you hit a big shot, then you should expect that the player is going to run out of the box. So you should be pre-piecing the double edit to the left or to the right so you can finish the fight quickly. And number two, if you take a bunch of damage, your first move should be to close the edits and place the wall in front of you. This is going to give you an extra layer of protection and more time to heal. Tip number 14, always be active. You should always be doing something during a fight. This could even be building, healing, editing, shooting, reloading. The list can go on and on. Most of this is obvious, but if you get a second to relax, then you should be reloading your shotgun, checking your material count, and making sure zone isn't an issue. And even when you're not really doing anything, checking the small things like your mats and zone while reloading will help you win more fights. Tip number 15. This next tip is super helpful for in-game fights. Let's say you're playing the solo victory cash cup. There's you and two other opponents. You're fighting one player and player two is spraying you from 50 meters away. You should always put one player between yourself and player two. This is important so you're always positioning yourself outside of the fight. This will limit damage coming in from the third party and will give you a chance to run if the fight goes bad. Tip number 16. Now let's talk about your position within the box. There's going to be a big difference between standing against the wall and going for a shot or standing in the back of your box and going for a shot. Both can be very useful, but different positions are going to mean different edits. So when you're at the back of the box, you're going to want to stand behind the cone and make either a bottom right or bottom left edit. This will give you easy toe shots and quick damage. Now, when you're right against the wall, you're going to want to use either window edits or a peanut butter edit. The best way to play when you're close against the wall is just quickly jiggle peeking or close the edit and retreat back behind the builds. Tip number 17, use left and right windows, not the middle one. First of all, the middle window is basically a 50-50 edit. This is going to expose yourself way more than you need to. The left and the right windows are smaller and show less of your body to the opponent. This is going to help you win more trades, and even if they get damage back to you, this doesn't mean that you should never use the middle window. Of course, the middle window is still great for opening up and sliding a cone through, for example. This tip is specifically when you're going for a shot. Tip number 18. This one is important for both offense and defense. Learn your phases. The most common is to use a ramp phase into a box when someone's holding their wall. You build a ramp behind you and break the wall while jumping forward. This will phase you right through the wall and put you straight into their box. And the reason why I mention this as defensive is that you need to know what to do when this happens to you. Of course, there are a ton of phase tricks, so let me know in the comments if I should make a video covering phasing. Tip number 19. Our second to last tip is going to get you in the habit of building high walls. In one of my most recent videos, I go over specific uses for the high wall, but in general, they're great for controlling pieces ahead of yourself and opponents in build fights. Like we talked about earlier, the reach of cones is extremely important for catching enemies. The high wall has a similar use. You can predict a player's movement, then throw a high wall in front of them, and you own the edit to get the damage off. It's all about piece control and being able to get those builds that your opponent can't. Tip number 20. Before I share this last tip, I just want to thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or you want to learn more, I'm always available in my CEICE Thesis Discord. We do regular VOD reviews every single Tuesday, money customs, and I'm always answering your questions. So the last tip is to fight players that are better than you. It is so easy to just absolutely destroy one of your friends, but it isn't always going to help you if you're just killing them every time. This might be a good warm-up, but you have to challenge yourself if you want to get better. Fighting a better player is going to help you learn new things, force you to think while fighting, adapt to different play styles, and help you work on good habits. If you can't find a player better than you to fight, well, you're probably lying. But if that's 100% true, then you might be the greatest fighter alive. And even if you are the GOAT, you should always be fighting different players to change up your practice. I promise you that if you implement these tricks, you'll become a better fighter. The deeper your bag is, the more dangerous you become. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.